Some people have shower thoughts. I have car thoughts. This is why I bring this little recorder around with me when I am driving. And I wanted to save these thoughts for an episode of Extra Radio. But, who knows? I might forget about them. They might leave my mind when I finally get home to sit down to record them. So I'll do it right here. A lot of people think I'm spot on when I say that there is something deeply, deeply wrong with the white psyche. There are a lot of people who agree with that. There are a lot of people who understand that we have many, many significant internal problems that far outweigh our external problems. But a lot of people, they don't see it that way. They think we need to have a white homogenous society, and if we don't, things will just be terrible because we'll be taken advantage of. And to that I say, what does that say about you? And how weak you are, that you need to have everything perfect in order for anything to be good, in order for you to have a functional culture. What does that say about you where one or two brown belligerents, one or two Semitic belligerents, if they exist in your midst, it'll all fall apart? Sorry, but if you can't take care, if you cannot resist the influence of one, two, a couple hundred belligerents, troublemakers, if you can't combat the influence, if you cannot fight effectively against that, you don't deserve to live. You don't deserve to survive, and you won't. If your culture is that fragile, if your systems are that fragile, if your societies are that fragile, they're not long for this world. I said this on Twitter, that just like Jews, the white dream is to become a piece of veal, soft, stupid, and ineffective. They don't want any trouble, any hardship, not even manual labor. None of it. None of it. But when I say something is wrong with whites and it needs to be fixed before anything else can happen, people get very angry at me. When I call into question the idea of white infallibility, people get very, very angry at me. To the point where they're now saying that they want to kill me, which is just insane. But I guess that's what happens when you go toe-to-toe with the religious ideas of the day, the prevailing religious ideas of the day, and that's what it is, a religion. The religion of white infallibility, the religion of white people. I say, we need to follow God's law. That's something we can do every day. That's something we can do. But apparently that's not good enough for some people, and well, as laid out in Deuteronomy 28, every punishment that God says will happen if you disobey is happening. It's like a checklist. But that's not good enough for some people. Oh, what can I do, dude? Oh, you believe that white people can do no wrong, and that anything wrong with white people is a Jew's fault or a brown person's fault. It's insane. Absolutely insane. And I say it's insane. There are people out there who believe, any system is tenable given a homogenous white population. Not their words, not mine. That's how insane that is. That's how insane these people are. They believe that whatever they do, just as long as it's white people, they think that pornography will cease having any damaging effects as long as it's white pornography. Or as long as it's non-Jewish pornography. So the justification, these chronic masturbators use when they say, I only watch hentai. Hentai is made by Japanese people, therefore it's not Jewish, therefore it's good. Porn is porn, buddy. You're warping your mind. You're convincing yourself that this is how sex really is when it's not. You're convincing yourself that this is what sex is for when it's not. You're giving yourself all of these deranged expectations of what this thing is. And it doesn't matter if a Japanese or a Jew or a Jupanese is making it. It's going to have the same effect on you. That's just how it's going to be. It's not going to change. The nature of the medium is not going to change based on who's in charge of it. Interest rates don't stop being interest rates if it's a goyim collecting the check. And this is why people have such a hard time listening to me. So I've received death threats, rape threats, all of these things. It's insane. Really, really, really insane. But if I'm making you feel that way, I have created an irreparable rupture in your gray matter, in your mind, in your soul, where you were filling it with this false god and I destroyed it. So that hatred you feel towards me is born out of a void that I created. I won. This is what people don't understand. Yeah, they put Jesus up on the cross, but their damage was already done by the time that happened. He influenced so many hearts and minds already. And they saw that influence as threatening to them. The people who turned Christ over to the Romans, it was done at that point. Their damage had already been done. Not comparing myself to Christ, far from it. But it's the same idea. You can kill somebody's body, but not their spirit. And if they are true, if what they say is the truth, that'll never die. So I may die. I put my head on a spike, but my work isn't going away. Regardless of whether you shut it down or not. So many people out there have my catalog downloaded. So they know the truth. They have tested what I've said against reality, and it checks out. So, insane, crazy people out there. Very dangerous, and really they're mostly dangerous to themselves. They see no worth in themselves. And if that's not nihilistic, I don't know what is. That you don't see yourself as a person of worth. That you don't see your soul as having any value. And you know what? They're probably right. They've neglected to take care of their souls, so now they have none. Their only sense of self-worth comes from people telling them, oh, that's good. And I'm sorry, no amount of factory work is going to change that for them. It's like a job may give you a sense of purpose for the first week, but then you'll be like, I hate this job. This is stupid. It's your soul. It's your conduct. It's how you treat other people. It's how you treat yourself that gives you worth. It's the soul of a man. That's his value. And these people who just want to destroy, they have nothing to lose, and that's sad. It's not scary, it's sad. Because they've neglected themselves for so long. They have not taken care of themselves. Nobody ever told them how. They've neglected to prove themselves. All these crazy people out there who worship the color of their skin. That's their God. And if it's not the crazy that their God is a different thing than a normie's God, we'll just use that, normal people. Unemployed curmudgeons, their god is their skin color. You see this transcending racial boundaries. You see this in Black Lives Matter. You see this in the internet right-wing intelligentsia. Crazy unemployed curmudgeons, nothing productive to do with their time. So they value the color of their skin, their genetic circumstances above all else. Normal people, they value the sodomite, the employed. There's some motorcycle people next to me. It's a cool motorcycle, actually. There's one guy on like a Harley looking thing, another guy on a crotch rocket, Honda. I'm not one for motorcycle riding myself, but I think they look cool. They're cool to look at. Neat pieces of machinery. But yeah, normal people, they value the sodomite above all else. And usually there's a lot of crossover between race idolaters and sodomite idolaters. But generally you see the sodomite idolatry more in the what is now the middle class. And I go after both, and people don't like that. People especially don't like it when I connect whites to sodomy and the promotion, acceptance, and proliferation of it. They especially don't like that. Well, I prove it. It doesn't matter if whites are slightly less likely to be gay than others, which is bullshit, by the way. White people are very good at spinning and lying and getting out of shit on technicalities. That's how you explain that 1% discrepancy. 1 percentage point discrepancy between whites and the other races. Well, technically I'm not because XYZ. See, I'm not. Tee. Once again, I've explained that. Whites are better at lying. It's just a fact. And we can convince ourselves it's not a lie because of, again, technicalities. Something both Jews and whites are good at. After all, Japheth begat Ashkenaz, along with a lot of others. It was white people. So your unemployed, underemployed, poor curmudgeon class, they worship their race. That's all they have. And the normal people out there, the middle class, stable job people out there, worship the sodomite above all else. And there's very rarely anybody that actually prioritizes God above all else. You shall have no other gods before me. And it's really not that hard to do. Just don't blow these worldly, temporary, ephemeral things out of proportion. Which is what we all tend to do. Everything is malleable. You need something permanent. Everything is ephemeral. You need something permanent. Something unchanging, something constant. That which transcends time and space. Something that is true regardless of if the world was a day old, or if Earth is a day old, or if Earth is so old that we don't have a unit of time to measure it, it's true. Something that is true from day one to day 1 billion. And that's it. And so many people neglect that. That's why it's the first commandment. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. No other gods before me. How many of us violate that? How many of us have violated that and have since repented for it? So I used to be that way. I used to put all sorts of weird things. I used to be really into sports. Used to be really into music. But none of that fulfilled me. None of that gave me purpose. None of that gave me contentment. It's just a problem a lot of people have. So, I'm really whacking at two hornets' nests right now, like a piñata. The normies who are, I hate using that word, but it's what you're what you're familiar with. See, they don't give me too much crap because I don't know, not too many of them find their way to my work. But the really vicious people are the race idolaters, especially the white ones. It's because they have nothing to lose. Most of them are unemployed, unfortunately. And it's very sad that they have to have a job in order to be good people. It's insane. Just think about that. Imagine being that kind of person where your sense of right and wrong, you only have one if you have a job. And only for a little bit, as we see how depraved the corporate world is, as reflected by the kind of garbage they put in their advertisements, the kind of filth. Seriously, it's like, what, I'm supposed to want to buy an iPhone 7 after I see some dude resting his head on some other dude's shoulder on a train? Fuck that. And here's why I say that 60+% of people are sodomites. Now, seeing something like that, seeing men using each other in a way that they should not be using, they shouldn't be doing that. To a sane population, a population with its instincts intact, that would be completely alienating. No, I'm not going to buy your fucking product. Fuck off. You're promoting abominations. You're making it seem cool and friendly and warm. No. You are liars. I'm not going to buy your product. Nobody says that. In fact, people probably think that's a good thing. Like, oh, look how cool they are. They have homos in their advertisements. Wow, we should buy their product. That makes me feel good. That's why I say that 60% of people are sodomites, because 60% of people look at that ad and say, like, yeah. In fact, it's probably more. I would say that 90% of people either have a good reaction to it or just don't give a shit. And both are bad in my opinion. One's worse than the other, but I have no patience for either worldview. A worldview that tolerates, rationalizes, promotes abomination, I have no patience for. I will not tolerate it. And I will not point out who accepts it. Who accepts it more than any other group. Because they have protests. They have protests against institutionalized sodomy in Colombia, which is a bad place to be. But they have their instincts intact because they have real problems to deal with. They have real life or death situations. Every day they experience that. Same thing with Jamaica. Jamaica was protesting at the U.S. Embassy over their promotion of sodomy. They have their instincts intact. Jamaica, not really a great place, but because of that, because they look life and death situations in the face every day, they have their instincts intact. They know what is damaging, what is not. They know what is bad, harmful, and what is not. Because they live it. They live it more than anybody else. They live it more than we do, certainly. I'm not going to say anybody else, but they're in the upper echelons of having problems. How much time do I have? I just don't understand it. I guess that's what the white middle class dream leads to. You become soft. You lose your instincts because you never have to use them. So when a threat comes along, you're just like, oh, it's not actually a threat. The people who call it a threat, they're the threat. It doesn't matter. It's a non-issue. It's only fucking white people who say that. Like, when you bring up the very obvious problems that sodomites cause, they call it a non-issue or something, or they hand wave it away by saying, like, it's only X% of the population. No, it's more like XX% of the population. And even if it were single digits, 3%, whatever it is, whatever they're calling it now. It's a plastic bag with a bottle in it. Even if the sodomite snake, if they only made up 3% of the population, it would still be a problem because they hold disproportional influence over our institutions, which is something they bring up a lot with Jews, but they don't bring it up a lot with sodomites. They don't. So, if that were true, they have disproportional influence. It needs to be broken up. It needs to be mitigated because it is an odious influence. But if I'm right, and 60+% of people who are sodomites, if I'm right, then that means there's something deeply, deeply wrong with us. So either way, I can't lose. I'm right. It's a problem. It's like people get a little taste of success and they just completely forget about everything else. They completely forget that these things are actually a problem. They require maintenance. They require an antidote. A little success, like that's the worst thing for some people. Like once they have that, it's like their brain is completely wiped out of any knowledge of any problem on how to solve it or how to approach it. A little taste of success, a little bit of success, and they start rationalizing away the other problems. Well, it's not actually a problem. And you try to disabuse people of that mentality, they get very angry at you. Well, I call it the age of moral apathy. You know, for so many other reasons, but that's another one of them. You get successful in one respect, you're just like, whatever, who cares? Who cares? Who gives a shit? You know, if we carry on the way we're carrying on, we deserve genocide. No, it won't be deserved, it'll be earned. It's the wages of our apathy, of our tolerance of abomination. You know, if this is the way we're going to be, greedy, apathetic, hedonistic, then we'll deserve it. In fact, if this is how we're going to be, if this is fine to us, this is fine for white people to be greedy, hedonistic, apathetic, idolatrous, then we need to accelerate the genocide before anybody else gets hurt by it. You can't have an amoral population. You can't have a hedonistic population. As soon as sodomy became a culturally accepted practice within the Ottoman Empire, they weren't much long for the world after that. Same thing with the Romans and Greeks. You just can't have it. The act of the sodomite signifies the death of the tribe, of the culture, of the civilization. A lot of people bring up this point that, it's always existed. Yes, and it's always caused problems. Are you stupid? Something's always existed, therefore we should accept it? What the fuck? Disease, famine, murder, that's always existed. So therefore it should be accepted. All these dysfunctional things have existed for a very long time. Therefore, that's the line of reasoning they're using within themselves to rationalize their apathy towards it. But every culture that accepts, like at the cultural level, is promoting this behavior of sodomy, the acceptance of the sodomite and his act. Once that happens, it's over. You're never going to recover from that. Every culture where this becomes a culturally accepted practice among the elite and the common people, done. Bye. Bye. History proves this time and time again. And in the words of the SJWs, it's not my job to educate you. The information is all there. You don't need to look very hard for it.